Have you ever felt completely powerless in the chaos of life? Like you're drowning in circumstances beyond your control, watching helplessly as external forces dictate your happiness, success, and peace? What if I told you that the most profound governance doesn't begin in parliaments or presidential offices, but in the quiet chamber of your own soul? But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. The quality of your thoughts, not your environment, is what truly determines the quality of your life. This might sound counterintuitive in a world that constantly tells us to change our surroundings, upgrade our possessions, or alter our external reality to find fulfillment. But stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might completely transform how you understand personal power. Consider this. Have you noticed how two people can face identical circumstances, yet respond in dramatically different ways? One crumbles under pressure, while another finds opportunity in crisis. What separates them isn't luck or circumstance, it's internal governance. True governance starts within. It's the radical understanding that while you cannot control everything that happens to you, you possess absolute authority over how you respond. This internal sovereignty is perhaps the most overlooked dimension of personal power in our externally focused world. Has this ever happened to you? You find yourself reacting to life rather than creating it, constantly adjusting to what's happening around you instead of generating what happens within you. This reactive pattern reflects abdicated self-governance, surrendering your internal authority to external conditions. Now, here's where things get truly fascinating. When we understand the concept of prayer correctly, we discover it's not merely pleading with some distant power. Rather, it's the soul's legislative capacity, the ability to decree truth into your reality. This isn't wishful thinking or magical manifestation. It's recognizing that spiritual leadership over circumstances begins with aligning your thoughts with higher principles. Think about the word authority for a moment. It shares roots with the word author. Through prayer, not as begging but as declaring reality, you begin authoring your life from the inside out. You're not attempting to manipulate the external world. You're governing your internal response to it. This understanding fundamentally shifts how we approach challenges. Instead of asking, "How can I change this situation?" the more empowered question becomes, "How can I govern my response to this situation?" The first question often leaves us frustrated when circumstances won't bend to our will. But the second question, if this exploration of spiritual governance has resonated with your journey, consider subscribing. Each video builds on these principles, offering practical guidance for maintaining conscious awareness in daily life. This centurion's revelation changes everything for how we approach faith. He recognized that Jesus operated within a spiritual authority structure. Just as he commanded soldiers in the physical realm, I say to one, "Go," and he goes, to another, "Come," and he comes. His military mind grasped what many religious people miss. Spiritual power flows through clear, unobstructed channels of authority. When we pray with confused authority, we're like someone trying to give orders in an army where they don't understand the chain of command. No wonder our spiritual directives often seem to bounce back unfulfilled. The centurion understood spiritual jurisdiction. He knew Jesus had the authority to simply declare healing without physically touching his servant. He recognized divine authority without needing religious ceremonies or physical manifestations. This revelation transforms our approach to faith. Many of us struggle with prayer because we're playing in a game where we don't understand the rules of authority. We're like civilians trying to command troops without rank or recognition. The breakthrough comes when we align our understanding with spiritual authority structures. But this leads us to an even more profound truth, the mental nature of our universe. Ancient wisdom and modern quantum physics converge on a startling reality. The material world is secondary to consciousness. The world is mental, not material, isn't just a philosophical position. It's the operating system of reality. Your thoughts, beliefs, and mental states aren't just passive observers. They're active creators. This isn't merely positive thinking, it's the foundational principle of spiritual science. When you truly grasp this, prayer transforms from begging an external deity to consciously directing the mental energy that constructs your experience. Think about it. Scientists have documented how observation affects quantum particles, how focused intention influences random number generators, how meditation physically changes brain structure. The evidence for mind over matter isn't fringe science, it's becoming mainstream understanding. This mental principle explains why faith works when properly aligned with authority. The centurion's clarity allowed his mental directive to flow unimpeded through proper spiritual channels. Many of us block our own prayers through mental interference, doubt, unworthiness, confused authority, or misaligned beliefs. Your mind is constantly projecting the reality you experience, whether you're conscious of it or not. Most people unconsciously project their fears, limiting beliefs, and past patterns. But when you awaken to this process, everything shifts. You become a conscious participant in creation rather than its unconscious victim. Ancient mystical traditions have taught this for millennia, often in veiled language to protect these powerful teachings. The mental principle doesn't eliminate God. It explains how the divine mind and your individual mind intersect in the creation process. When Jesus said, "It is done unto you according to your faith," he was revealing this very principle. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how the hierarchy of thought affects material manifestation. This isn't just theory, it's practical spiritual mechanics that changes how we approach everything from healing to prosperity to relationships. If you've ever felt that moment when something clicked in your understanding about how reality works, write "the veil is lifting" in the comments below. And this is where the revelation of mental control becomes truly profound. Our thoughts are not merely passive whispers in our minds. They are powerful architects that construct the blueprint of our reality. When you genuinely understand the law of mentalism, you recognize that changing your mind quite literally changes your world. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how your perception of external events shifts dramatically based on your internal state? This isn't coincidence. The external world you experience is actually a reflection of your internal thought patterns. When you're anxious, the world seems threatening. When you're peaceful, the same circumstances appear manageable. The difference isn't in the events themselves, but in the mental lens through which you view them. This understanding represents a fundamental shift in consciousness, a transformation that reframes our entire approach to life's challenges. Rather than seeing ourselves as victims of circumstance, we recognize our role as co-creators of our experience. This revelation carries tremendous responsibility, but also incredible freedom. You are not trapped by your current reality. You're simply experiencing the manifestation of your dominant thoughts. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this profound truth. The Hermetic teachings explain that everything in existence begins as a mental construct before manifesting in physical form. This isn't just philosophical theory, it's a practical framework for conscious creation. The universe responds to the energy of thought because, at its most fundamental level, it is thought. Biblical scripture reinforces this principle countless times. In the beginning was the Word, a powerful affirmation that creation begins in the realm of thought and speech. When scripture says, "Let there be light," it's illustrating the divine creative process that begins with decree. Similarly, when we read, "Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen," we're being reminded that mental conviction precedes physical manifestation. This understanding gives new meaning to affirmations like, "As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he." These aren't simply poetic metaphors, they're precise instructions for conscious creation. By aligning your thoughts with your desired reality, you set in motion the energetic patterns that will eventually manifest in your physical experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how the law of mentalism explains why some people seem to effortlessly attract what they want while others struggle. The distinction often lies not in external actions, but in their internal harmony. Those who have mastered this principle understand that their thoughts, emotions, and beliefs must be in alignment before physical manifestation can occur. They've learned to maintain mental discipline even when current circumstances don't yet reflect their desires. This journey toward mental mastery isn't about denying reality or engaging in wishful thinking. Rather, it's about understanding the causal relationship between thought and experience. It's recognizing that perception shapes reality, and that by consciously directing our thoughts, we participate in the creative process that shapes our lives. The integration of this wisdom brings a profound sense of empowerment. No longer are we passive observers of life, but active participants in its unfolding. Our thoughts become the chisel with which we sculpt our experience moment by moment, day by day. If you're seeing how these principles have been operating in your life already, write "I see the pattern" in the comments below. Imagine your mind as a garden. Not just any garden, but the most fertile soil you've ever encountered. Every seed you plant, every thought you accept as true, will inevitably grow into the experiences that shape your reality. This isn't mystical thinking, it's the practical operation of your consciousness. When we truly understand that our experiences have mental causes, it transforms how we navigate life. That promotion you're seeking, the relationship you desire, the health outcome you're hoping for, all of these external circumstances begin as internal patterns. Your subconscious doesn't discriminate between what you consciously want and what you unconsciously believe. It simply accepts and manifests. I've witnessed this transformation in my own life. For years, I carried an underlying belief that financial success required struggle and sacrifice. Despite working toward abundance, my subconscious was programmed for struggle. It wasn't until I addressed this mental contradiction that my external circumstances began to shift. The obstacle wasn't in the world, it was in my mind. This is why prayer, when properly understood, becomes such a powerful vehicle for change. Not because you're petitioning an external force, but because you're reorganizing your mental landscape. A prayer filled with absolute conviction of health becomes a healing force. A prayer vibrating with the feeling of prosperity becomes a magnet for abundance. The prayer isn't changing external reality directly. It's changing your mental state, which then manifests externally. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because many people misunderstand this process. They think positive thinking alone is sufficient. But there's a profound difference between surface-level affirmations and genuinely altered beliefs. Your subconscious doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you feel to be true. This is where deep mental work happens. Consider how seamlessly this operates in experiences you take for granted. You don't doubt gravity will hold you to the earth. You don't question whether the sun will rise tomorrow. That absolute certainty, that's the level of acceptance your subconscious requires to manifest your desires. When you reach that state of knowing for your goals and aspirations, the external world begins to reorganize around your internal reality. This mental-to-physical pipeline explains why two people can face identical circumstances, yet experience entirely different outcomes. One person sees challenge as evidence of their inability to succeed. Another sees the same challenge as the perfect opportunity to grow. Same external reality, radically different experiences, all stemming from different mental causes. The revelations continue when we examine how quickly our reality shifts once our mental state transforms. How many times have you noticed that when you genuinely change your attitude about something, the situation itself seems to change? That's not coincidence, it's causation. The relationship between your thoughts and your experiences isn't merely correlational, it's the fundamental operating system of your life. What's particularly fascinating is how this process works even when we're unaware of it. Your subconscious is continuously accepting impressions and manifesting results based on your deepest beliefs, whether or not you're conscious of those beliefs. This is why self-awareness becomes such a crucial journey. The hidden truths about ourselves often create the most powerful impacts on our external reality. If you've been experiencing this connection between your thoughts and your reality, write mental cause, physical effect in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have noticed this powerful relationship at work in your own lives. Prayer isn't just a solitary experience confined to quiet rooms. Throughout history, we've witnessed remarkable examples of prayer's transformative power on a collective scale. Consider how during the darkest hours of World War II, entire nations turned to prayer in unified purpose. In Britain, King George VI called for a national day of prayer as 338,000 Allied soldiers were trapped at Dunkirk, facing almost certain defeat. What followed? The miraculous evacuation across unusually calm waters during a critical weather window, many attribute to divine intervention prompted by collective prayer. The journey of prayer through human history reveals its capacity to heal deep societal wounds. After the American Civil War, a nation torn apart began its reconciliation not just through political means, but through prayer circles where former enemies sat together seeking understanding. Even in modern conflict zones, we've seen remarkable ceasefires during religious holidays when opposing forces laid down weapons in response to spiritual calling. This hidden truth about prayer's impact extends beyond just asking for divine intervention. Prayer creates a psychological and emotional pivot point, a place of mental stillness where clarity emerges from chaos. When communities pray together, something profound happens in the collective consciousness. Research in social psychology confirms what spiritual traditions have known for millennia. Unified intention creates ripple effects beyond what we can measure. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the brilliant spiritual diagram Jesus provided in the parable of the sower. In this teaching, he revealed something fundamental about how our minds work in relation to spiritual cultivation. The seeds represent thoughts and ideas that enter our consciousness. Some fall on hard ground and never take root, like concepts we immediately reject. Others sprout quickly in shallow soil but wither under pressure, similar to enthusiastic spiritual commitments abandoned at the first difficulty. The most revealing insight comes from the seeds that grow successfully. These represent thoughts cultivated in prepared, receptive minds, demonstrating that the quality of our mental soil determines which ideas flourish within us. This isn't just ancient wisdom, it's a profound psychological revelation about how our thought patterns shape our entire experience of reality. When we understand our thoughts as seeds, we begin practicing a form of mental agriculture. Which seeds do you allow to take root? Which do you nurture with repeated attention? Which do you pull out like weeds when they threaten to overtake your mental garden? The mastery of this process is perhaps the most valuable. transformation any spiritual practice offers. This mindset shift reveals why prayer and meditation share common ground despite their differences. Both practices help us become conscious farmers of our mental landscape. When prayer becomes deliberate thought cultivation rather than mere petition, its effectiveness multiplies. You're no longer asking for external intervention alone. You're aligning your entire consciousness with your deepest values and aspirations. The revelations continue when we examine how successful people across various fields, from business leaders to artists, scientists to humanitarians, describe their relationship with thought. Almost universally, they practice some form of disciplined thinking, carefully selecting which mental seeds to nurture and which to discard. Their achievements aren't accidental, they're harvests from well-tended mental gardens. If your thoughts truly are seeds that grow into the circumstances of your life, what are you planting today? Consider how different your experience might be if you approached each prayer not just as a request, but as planting a seed that requires your continued nurturing through attention and action. If this perspective on prayer as spiritual thought cultivation resonates with you, write in the comments, "I'm tending my garden." I'd love to know what seeds you're intentionally planting in your life right now. So what happens when our prayers seem to go unanswered? Why do some people appear to master the art of manifestation while others struggle? The difference often lies in our mental discipline during prayer. It's not just about the words we use, but the emotional and mental state from which those words emerge. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how your prayers change depending on your emotional state? When we're fearful, our prayers become desperate pleas filled with anxiety and doubt. Please, please, please let this work out. This desperate energy actually creates resistance in the manifestation process. True effective prayer operates from a place of calm certainty. It's like planting seeds in fertile soil rather than rocky ground. Your mind is that soil, and fear makes it barren and unreceptive. When you approach prayer with inner coherence, alignment between your conscious requests and subconscious beliefs, you create the optimal conditions for manifestation. This understanding reveals a profound truth about the spiritual journey. Prayer isn't about convincing some external force to grant your wishes. It's about aligning your entire being with what you're asking for. The transformation happens within you first. I've witnessed this in my own life. During periods of fear and anxiety, my prayers seemed to bounce off invisible walls. But when I learned to center myself first, to find that quiet place of faith before making my requests, the results were dramatically different. It wasn't that God suddenly started listening. I had changed the receiver through which I was communicating. Now I want to go even deeper into this concept of faith versus fear in our prayer life. The distinction between insistent prayer and affirmational prayer offers remarkable insights into how our consciousness shapes our reality. Insistent prayer, that anxious, repetitive asking, comes from a place of lack. It actually reinforces the belief that what we want is absent, difficult to obtain, or might be denied. It's a prayer mindset that subtly undermines itself. Affirmational prayer works from an entirely different premise. Instead of begging for something to happen, you acknowledge it as already accomplished in spirit, awaiting its physical manifestation. "Thank you for this blessing that is already mine," carries a completely different energy than "please give me this thing I lack." This shift represents a profound spiritual maturity. You're no longer approaching the universe as a supplicant, but as a co-creator. You're recognizing that the abundance you seek already exists in potential form, and your faith is the bridge that brings it into physical reality. The impact of this understanding extends far beyond just getting what you want. It fundamentally changes your relationship with life itself. You begin to see challenges not as punishments or obstacles, but as opportunities for growth and revelation. Your prayers become less about changing external circumstances and more about aligning with higher wisdom. Behind the scenes of every answered prayer is this hidden truth. The state of consciousness from which you pray determines far more than the words you use. A fearful mind creates a static-filled channel where your intentions get distorted. A faithful mind creates clear reception, allowing manifestation to flow naturally and easily. What's your experience with prayer? Have you noticed how your emotional state affects the results? Write in the comments, "I pray from faith, not fear," if this perspective resonates with you. And you're committed to approaching your spiritual practice from this more powerful stance. The impact of silence after prayer is a transformative principle that's often overlooked in manifestation practices. Think about this. When you plant a seed in soil, you don't dig it up every few hours to check if it's growing, right? You water it, provide sunlight, and then, crucially, you leave it alone to do its thing. This same principle applies to our mental operations after we decree or pray for something. When we maintain silence after putting our intentions into the universe, we're actually creating a sacred space for those intentions to take root. This isn't just spiritual poetry. It's practical mental energy management. Each time you revisit a prayer with doubt or anxiety, asking, "Is it working yet?" you're essentially pulling that seedling out of the ground, disrupting its natural development process. The hidden truth about manifestation is that our continuous mental chatter can be the very obstacle standing between us and our desired outcomes. The subconscious mind works most effectively in conditions of trust and surrender, not under the scrutiny of our analytical, often doubtful, conscious mind. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring treatment metaphysics, which offers a fascinating framework for restructuring our subconscious patterns. Think of treatment metaphysics as a systematic approach to manifestation, almost like having a GPS for navigating the landscape of your mind towards specific destinations. At its core, treatment metaphysics involves a series of deliberate mental operations designed to align your entire being with your goals. This isn't about wishful thinking or vague affirmations. It's about precise mental craftsmanship. The journey begins with clarity of intention, where you define exactly what you're working toward. But here's where many people miss the mark. Your intention must be framed in the present tense, as if it's already happening. The next crucial step involves emotional activation. Your subconscious doesn't respond primarily to logic, it responds to feeling. When you can genuinely generate the emotions associated with already having achieved your goal, you create a powerful resonance that accelerates manifestation. This is where most manifestation practices fail. They remain intellectual exercises without emotional embodiment. What fascinates me about treatment metaphysics is its acknowledgement of resistance. Rather than pretending doubts don't exist, this approach incorporates a phase specifically for identifying and addressing mental obstacles. This honest confrontation with your limiting beliefs creates authentic transformation rather than temporary motivation. The methodology then guides you through visualization that engages all senses, not just sight. Can you hear the sounds associated with your achievement? Can you feel the textures, smell the scents, taste the success? This multisensory engagement strengthens the neural pathways that support your new reality. Perhaps most powerfully, treatment metaphysics culminates in a state of gratitude and detachment, expressing thanks for what is already yours, while releasing the desperate need for it to happen in a specific way or time frame. This paradoxical combination of certainty and surrender creates the perfect conditions for manifestation. The revelations that come through consistent practice of these techniques often surprise even long-time practitioners. The mind's capacity to restructure itself, what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity, means that these aren't just spiritual exercises, but actual brain-changing protocols that alter your perception and consequently your experience of reality. If any of this resonates with your own experiences, or if you've been practicing something similar, I'd love to hear about it. Write "silent power" in the comments if you've ever experienced the strength that comes from mental stillness after setting an intention. The deeper truth about effective prayer is that it actually changes consciousness before it changes external circumstances. This inner transformation is what creates the foundation for manifestation. When we pray from a place of profound spiritual authority, we're not just sending out empty wishes or desperate pleas. We're actually aligning our consciousness with spiritual truth principles that govern reality. Think about this. Have you noticed how some people seem to manifest their desires with remarkable consistency? The difference isn't luck or divine favoritism. It's that they've developed a powerful internal authority that naturally commands their experience. Their prayers don't come from a place of lack or begging, but from a centered position of spiritual governance. Jesus demonstrated this masterfully. Remember when he calmed the storm? The disciples were panicking while Jesus was asleep in the boat. When they woke him, he simply spoke to the wind and waves. "Peace, be still." This wasn't elaborate pleading or bargaining with the elements. It was a silent, order-type prayer that came from his unshakable Christ consciousness. He knew his relationship to the storm. He understood his spiritual authority over chaos. What's fascinating about this moment is that Jesus didn't engage in dramatic ritual or lengthy invocation. His prayer was brief, certain, and imbued with the quiet confidence of one who knows they're speaking from truth. This is what I call spiritual governance, the natural authority that emerges when we access higher states of consciousness. The revolutionary insight here is that we all have access to this same power. The Christ consciousness isn't exclusive to Jesus. It's the spiritual inheritance of every human being. When we pray from this elevated awareness, we're not trying to convince an external God to intervene. We're activating our divine nature to organize experience differently. This transformation in prayer consciousness represents a profound evolution in our spiritual journey. Instead of approaching prayer as a supplicant, we approach it as a co-creator. This shift fundamentally alters the relationship between the individual and the divine, between consciousness and reality. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this understanding of prayer as consciousness transformation plays out in our everyday lives. There's a practical wisdom here that can revolutionize not just our prayer practice, but our entire approach to challenges and desires. The hidden truth is that most people pray from their current state of consciousness, which is often defined by the very problem they're trying to solve. This creates a spiritual contradiction, praying for abundance while feeling lack, praying for health while identifying with illness, praying for peace while harboring conflict. The prayer itself becomes contaminated with the very energy we're trying to transcend. Effective prayer requires a consciousness shift before words are even spoken. It's about entering a state of being where what we're praying for already exists in spiritual reality. From that elevated perspective, our words carry a different vibration and authority. They become declarations of truth rather than requests for intervention. This reveals the subtle yet profound difference between two types of prayer. One that reinforces our separation from what we desire, and another that affirms our oneness with it. The revolutionary prayer doesn't try to change God's mind about our situation. It changes our mind about our relationship to God. Have you ever considered that your consciousness might be the determining factor in whether your prayers are answered? If this perspective resonates with your spiritual journey, write in the comments. My consciousness creates my reality. I'm curious how many of you have experienced this truth in your own prayer practice. The fascinating part about our subconscious mind is that it functions like the most loyal servant imaginable, or if left undirected, can become an unconscious tyrant, ruling our lives from the shadows. Think about this revelation for a moment. This powerful force within you isn't inherently good or bad. It's neutral, waiting for instructions. The quality of those instructions makes all the difference in your journey. When we repeatedly feed our subconscious mind with specific thoughts, it accepts them as commands to be carried out. This is why affirmations work when done properly. It's not magical thinking. It's programming the internal system that runs most of your life. Every time you consciously direct a thought with emotional intensity and repetition, you're essentially writing new code for your mental operating system. The transformation happens beneath the surface, often without your awareness, until one day you notice you've become a different person. Most people stumble through life allowing random inputs, news headlines, others' opinions, past traumas, to program their subconscious mind by default. The hidden truth here is that deliberate repetition of carefully chosen thoughts creates an entirely different reality than passive absorption of whatever floats by. It's the difference between designing your life and merely reacting to it. This understanding illuminates why prayer has been such a powerful force throughout human history. Effective. Prayer isn't just wishful thinking or mystical pleading. It's a sophisticated psychological mechanism for channeling precise thoughts into your subconscious mind. When you pray with conviction, you're engaging both your conscious and subconscious in a unified direction. The conscious mind selects the desired outcome, while the subconscious begins its tireless work of manifesting that reality. Consider how revolutionary this perspective is. Prayer becomes less about external intervention and more about internal alignment. The conscious mind, your awareness right now, is like the captain of a ship, making decisions about direction and purpose. But it's your subconscious, the massive engine room below deck, that actually powers the vessel forward through the waters of life. This two-part system explains why some people seem to manifest their desires while others remain stuck. The key distinction isn't luck or divine favoritism. It's understanding how to properly direct your subconscious mind through deliberate thought patterns. The impact of this knowledge can completely reshape your approach to challenges, goals, and even your sense of personal identity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this mental partnership operates in practical reality. Your conscious mind might set the destination, but your subconscious determines whether you actually arrive. This explains the frustrating gap between knowing what you should do and consistently doing it. The subconscious doesn't judge the quality of your thoughts. It simply accepts and acts on whatever is repeatedly presented with emotion and conviction. Think about how this plays out in everyday life. Someone might consciously decide they want financial abundance, but if their subconscious is programmed with beliefs like money is the root of all evil or rich people are greedy, these underlying patterns will sabotage their conscious intentions. The revelations about how these two aspects of mind interact explain so many of life's mysteries. Why willpower alone often fails, why knowing better doesn't automatically lead to doing better, and why deep change requires more than surface-level decisions. If you recognize this dynamic playing out in your own life, write in the comments, "I'm taking control of my programming." When we embrace self-responsibility in how we manage our thoughts, we're essentially planting new seeds in the fertile soil of our minds. This isn't just philosophical musing. It's a practical approach to transformation that can genuinely open pathways to entirely new life experiences. I've witnessed countless individuals who, upon realizing they hold the keys to their mental kingdom, experienced profound shifts in their reality. Consider this hidden truth. Your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between what's objectively real and what you consistently feed it through your thought patterns. It simply accepts and acts upon the dominant impressions it receives. This is why two people can experience identical external circumstances, yet walk away with completely different emotional responses and life outcomes. The journey of changing these internal seeds isn't always straightforward. When you first begin redirecting thoughts from limitation to possibility, from fear to courage, you might encounter resistance. This resistance isn't evidence that the process isn't working. Rather, it's a sign that deep-rooted neural pathways are being challenged. Behind the scenes of your conscious awareness, your brain is literally rewiring itself to accommodate new patterns of thinking. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how true spiritual growth operates within this framework. Authentic spiritual development isn't just about adopting external practices or accumulating knowledge. It requires a fundamental alignment between your subconscious thought patterns and your spiritual aspirations. Without this alignment, spiritual practices often remain superficial, failing to penetrate the deeper layers of our being where lasting change occurs. The revelations that emerge when we successfully align our subconscious with our spiritual understanding can be profound. Many discover that beliefs they thought they had integrated were merely intellectual concepts, not yet embodied truths. This discovery doesn't represent failure. It marks a crucial milestone in genuine spiritual maturity. What makes this approach so powerful is how it highlights the individual's conscious role in their own evolution. Rather than positioning ourselves as passive recipients of life's circumstances or even divine grace, we recognize our active partnership in the co-creation process. This mindset shift transforms how we navigate challenges, interpret setbacks, and celebrate progress. The impact of this understanding extends beyond personal development into how we show up in our relationships, career decisions, and community involvement. When we take ownership of our thought patterns, we naturally become more intentional about the energy we bring into shared spaces. This creates ripple effects that extend far beyond our individual experience. I've observed that this level of self-awareness often coincides with a newfound compassion for others. When we recognize how we've been unconsciously shaped by our own thought patterns, we develop more patience for those still caught in limiting mental frameworks. This compassion doesn't mean enabling destructive behaviors. Rather, it allows us to hold space for others' growth while maintaining appropriate boundaries. If what I'm describing resonates with your experience or aspirations, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Type "Consciousness creates reality" in the comments if you've been working on managing your thoughts to transform your life experiences. This conversation becomes richer when we share our insights and challenges with one another. Prayer isn't just about asking for things or reciting words. It's actually a profound governance system for our experience. When we look at history's greatest spiritual teachers, they understood something that modern science is only beginning to acknowledge. Consciousness affects reality at levels deeper than what appears on the surface. Think about what happens when you genuinely pray with understanding. You're not merely hoping for random intervention. You're establishing an internal order that transcends material misperceptions. The transformation begins in how you perceive reality itself. What seemed like fixed circumstances suddenly reveals its malleability when approached through spiritual understanding. I had a fascinating conversation with a quantum physicist who explained that at the subatomic level, particles seem to respond to observation, to consciousness itself. This parallels what mystics have taught for centuries, that prayer operates at this foundational level of creation, not just as a psychological comfort, but as an actual causal force. This causal power that prayer provides doesn't manipulate external chance. It addresses the internal origin of experience. When you pray with spiritual understanding, you're not leaving outcomes to random fortune. You're recognizing that the source of your experience is consciousness itself. This is why identical external circumstances can be experienced completely differently by two people with different mental alignments. What's remarkable is how this understanding liberates us from victimhood. Instead of feeling subject to outside forces, prayer reveals our capacity to participate in creating our reality through mental alignment with spiritual principles. The hidden truth is that prayer fundamentally shifts our relationship with causality. We move from being passive recipients of life to active participants in its unfolding. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how it works in practical terms. Prayer establishes what I call a spiritual jurisdiction over our thoughts and perceptions. When faced with challenges, most people attempt to manipulate physical circumstances directly, but authentic prayer approaches problems from their causal root in consciousness. This is why so many people report synchronicities and coincidences following periods of sincere prayer. They've shifted something at the causal level, and the external world naturally reorganizes to reflect this inner shift. The journey of prayer is consequently not about negotiating with external powers, but about claiming your rightful relationship with the source of all experience. Some of the most profound revelations come when we realize that prayer is less about changing God's mind and more about aligning our mind with divine intelligence. This alignment creates an internal coherence that naturally manifests as improved external conditions. The impact of this understanding transforms prayer from mere wishful thinking into a practical spiritual technology. Behind the scenes of every prayer practice that truly works is this principle of mental governance. You're not overriding physical laws, you're operating through higher laws that determine how physical laws express. The revelation that physical reality responds to consciousness is not supernatural. It's perfectly natural once you understand the hierarchy of causation. If you've experienced moments where prayer seemed to reorganize seemingly impossible situations in your life, write in the comments, "I've witnessed this shift." Your story could help others recognize similar patterns in their own experience. Biblical narratives often serve as powerful metaphors for our inner journeys. When we examine these ancient stories, we discover they're not just historical accounts, but profound illustrations of how inner faith can triumph over external chaos. Think about the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Surrounded by certain death, yet his unwavering consciousness of divine protection created a shield around him. This wasn't mere luck or coincidence. It was the manifestation of an immovable inner conviction. These scriptural references offer us a blueprint for governing our own challenging situations. They remind us that regardless of how turbulent the external circumstances may appear, the true battleground is within our own consciousness. When facing a difficult diagnosis or financial uncertainty, we can draw upon this timeless wisdom to maintain our center. What's particularly fascinating is how a self-maintained consciousness of good provides the framework for redirecting unordered thoughts. When we're bombarded with negative news or fearful predictions, our mental universe can quickly become disordered. Yet through deliberate practice, we can establish mental disciplines that restore harmony. This isn't about denial or wishful thinking. It's about recognizing a deeper reality beneath the surface appearances. The journey toward mental clarity often begins with intentional focus. In prayers or meditations, directing our attention toward truths rather than symptoms creates a profound shift. I've witnessed remarkable transformations in people who committed to this practice, where their perception of problems fundamentally changed, not because the external situation immediately resolved, but because their relationship to it transformed. Consider how many of history's great changemakers maintained their resolve through seemingly impossible circumstances. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, yet emerged without bitterness. His inner world remained ordered despite external chaos. This same principle applies to our daily challenges, though perhaps less dramatically. The parent facing a child's illness, the professional navigating workplace toxicity, the individual confronting addiction, all can access this same wellspring of ordered thinking. The hidden truth here is that our thoughts create patterns that either amplify or diminish our challenges. When we maintain consciousness of good, of possibility, of healing, of resolution, we're not engaging in escapism, but rather tapping into creative forces that reorganize our experience. This represents a profound shift from victim mentality to conscious participation in our life circumstances. What makes this approach revolutionary is its accessibility. Unlike solutions that require special circumstances, considerable wealth, or rare talent, this mental discipline is available to anyone willing to practice it. The barriers to entry aren't external, but internal. Our willingness to challenge our own thought patterns and commit to a different perspective. I want to go even deeper into this practice by exploring specific techniques that can help establish this ordered consciousness, even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. These practical approaches have helped countless individuals navigate their darkest hours with remarkable grace and effectiveness. If what I'm describing resonates with your own experience or aspirations, write "Inner order creates outer harmony" in the comments below. I'd love to hear how these principles have manifested in your own life journey. Now I want to go even deeper into this fascinating journey of faith in the face of contradictory appearances. When everything around you suggests your prayers aren't working, this is precisely when unwavering commitment becomes most transformative. Think about it. The spiritual masters throughout history understood that what appears on the surface often masks the deeper currents of change already in motion. The hidden truth about effective prayer is that it establishes a powerful internal order that eventually overrides external chaos. This spiritual governance creates new causes that gradually reshape your external reality. It's like planting seeds in winter. Though the ground appears barren, profound transformation happens beneath the surface before any visible growth emerges. Joseph's remarkable story in Egypt perfectly illustrates this principle. Sold into slavery by his brothers, imprisoned on false accusations, he had every reason to believe God had abandoned him. Yet throughout this journey of apparent misfortune, Joseph maintained an unwavering consciousness aligned with divine principles. His internal spiritual order remained intact despite his chaotic circumstances. And what was the result of this steadfast inner governance? He eventually rose to become second only to Pharaoh, saving countless lives during famine, including the very family that betrayed him. What's fascinating about Joseph's mindset was his ability to see divine purpose even in his darkest moments. "You meant it for evil," he later told his brothers, "but God meant it for good." This profound reframing represents the essence of spiritual consciousness, recognizing that behind apparent disorder lies a higher intelligence orchestrating events for greater purposes. The revelations within Joseph's story applied directly to our modern challenges. When you're facing financial difficulties, relationship struggles, or health concerns, maintaining spiritual governance means refusing to surrender your internal state to external circumstances. Your steadfast prayers establish new causes that gradually manifest as tangible outcomes. This principle operates much like water, transforming from liquid to a vapor. At 99 degrees, water shows no visible signs of the dramatic change about to occur, One more degree of consistent heat application, and suddenly transformation happens. Your prayers work the same way, creating momentum that appears invisible until the precise moment of breakthrough. Understanding this dynamic completely shifts how we approach prayer during difficult seasons. Instead of seeing prayer as merely asking for divine intervention, we recognize it as actively participating in cosmic governance. Through conscious alignment with spiritual principles, we become co-creators in establishing divine order within our sphere of influence. The impact of this approach extends far beyond personal benefit. As you maintain unwavering faith despite challenging appearances, you actually create a field of positive possibility that affects everyone around you. Your commitment to spiritual governance becomes a catalyst for collective transformation. What's particularly striking about this journey is how it cultivates patience and discernment. You become less reactive to temporary conditions and more responsive to eternal principles. This shift in consciousness represents true spiritual maturity, the ability to see beyond appearances to the deeper reality being woven through your circumstances. If this perspective resonates with your own experience of faith amid challenges, write "spiritual governance" in the comments below. Now let's explore how this principle of unwavering prayer specifically transforms the most challenging aspects of our lives. Our internal causality shapes our experience in ways more profound than most realize. When we understand that we're not merely responding to the world, but actively creating it through our perceptions, a remarkable transformation occurs. This shift in awareness doesn't just change our thoughts, it fundamentally alters the field of experience itself. What once appeared as fixed limitations suddenly reveals itself as fluid potential waiting for our conscious direction. Think about how differently you navigate life when you recognize yourself as the author of your experience rather than its subject. This realization is perhaps the most powerful hidden truth on our journey toward authentic self-governance. When you catch yourself saying, "This happened to me," try reframing. How am I participating in creating this situation? The subtle shift from external to internal causation deepens your field of experience immeasurably. The governance we seek externally actually emerges from within. By developing steady consciousness, that unwavering presence that remains centered regardless of circumstance, we gain the capacity to meet life's challenges with new internal regulations. This isn't about control in the conventional sense. Rather, it's about creating coherent responses aligned with our deepest understanding. Consider how different societies throughout history have attempted to regulate human behavior through external structures. While these systems serve important functions, they ultimately remain incomplete without the inner dimension of governance. True governance arises from spiritual unity, that profound recognition that we're interconnected parts of a greater whole. This understanding naturally evokes responsibility, compassion, and ethical clarity without requiring external enforcement. This revelation fundamentally reshapes our relationship with authority. Instead of projecting power outward onto institutions or individuals, we recognize our innate capacity to author our experience. This doesn't mean external structures become irrelevant, quite the contrary. They become more effective when populated by individuals operating from this awakened state of consciousness. The journey toward this understanding isn't always comfortable. It requires confronting the ways we've unconsciously given our power away. Each time we blame external circumstances for our struggles, we reinforce the very limitations we seek to transcend. The breakthrough comes in recognizing these patterns and consciously choosing a new response, one that acknowledges our creative participation. What makes this process particularly challenging is that it unfolds in the domain of the invisible. We can't directly observe our consciousness any more than an eye can see itself. Yet through consistent practice and deep reflection, we develop the capacity to recognize the patterns of our awareness. This metacognitive ability, being aware of our awareness, becomes the foundation for genuine transformation. As we cultivate this internal governance, external relationships naturally shift. We no longer seek validation or permission from outside authorities in quite the same way. Instead, we approach relationships as opportunities for co-creation. This doesn't mean rejecting wisdom from others. It means engaging with it from a place of sovereign discernment rather than dependency. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this understanding applies to our everyday decisions. The choices we make moment by moment either reinforce our sense of external causation or strengthen our recognition of internal authorship. Even seemingly insignificant decisions carry this potential for awakening. If you're finding these ideas resonate with your own experience of governance and consciousness, write in the comments, "I'm reclaiming my authorship." What makes these techniques so effective is that they've been verified countless times through real human experiences. I've witnessed remarkable transformations in people who applied these principles consistently. One woman I worked with had struggled with chronic financial instability for decades. After adopting these consciousness-shifting practices, within months she had not only secured stable income, but had created multiple streams of abundance that completely transformed her life circumstances. The hidden truth about thought management lies in its compounding effect. Each deliberately chosen thought creates neural pathways that become stronger with repetition. This is why mindfulness becomes such a powerful tool in this journey. By becoming aware of your thought patterns without judgment, you create the necessary space between stimulus and response that allows you to exercise authority over your conditions rather than being controlled by them. I want to go deeper into what happens during this transformational process. When you consistently redirect your thoughts toward what you desire rather than what you fear, you're essentially reprogramming your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information. This subtle shift in perception begins highlighting opportunities that were always there but remained invisible to you before. What's fascinating about this mental recalibration is how it affects your everyday decisions. Someone practicing these principles might suddenly feel drawn to attend an event they would normally avoid, only to meet the exact person who becomes instrumental in their next breakthrough. These coincidences start multiplying when you maintain alignment between your conscious intentions and your subconscious patterns. The revelations that emerge from this practice often surprise even the most dedicated practitioners. You begin noticing how your previous thought patterns were creating self-fulfilling prophecies that kept you locked in cycles of limitation. The awareness itself becomes liberating, allowing you to step outside these cycles and choose differently. Behind the scenes of every major life change is this invisible work of consciousness management. People often attribute success to external factors, being in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people, or simply luck. But those who understand these principles recognize that these external circumstances are the natural outgrowth of internal shifts that preceded them. This understanding represents a fundamental mindset revolution. Instead of seeing yourself as a victim of circumstances, you recognize your role as a co-creator of your reality. This doesn't mean ignoring practical action, quite the opposite. When your thoughts align with your desired outcomes, you find yourself naturally motivated to take the precise actions that move you toward those outcomes with less resistance and greater momentum. Even more powerful than individual thought management is the practice of developing consistent belief patterns. This mental maturity allows you to sustain new conditions rather than reverting to old patterns when challenges arise. It's the difference between temporary improvement and permanent transformation. The impact of these practices extends far beyond material circumstances. Relationships improve, creative solutions emerge more readily, and a general sense of peaceful confidence replaces anxiety about the future. This isn't positive thinking as a superficial bandage. It's a fundamental realignment of how you participate in creating your life experience. If you're resonating with what I'm sharing, type "I'm reclaiming my creative power" in the comments below. Now, I want to explore exactly how we can apply these principles in practical, everyday situations. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic of affirmations and how they're fundamentally reshaping your reality beneath the surface. When you speak an affirmation with genuine conviction, when your words carry emotional weight rather than empty repetition, you're essentially coding new instructions into your subconscious operating system. This isn't merely positive thinking. It's a deliberate rewiring of the mental architecture that determines how you perceive and interact with the world around you. Think of your structured thinking patterns as the invisible scaffolding that holds up your visible reality. The subconscious doesn't distinguish between what you've actually experienced and what you've vividly imagined with emotion. This is why the quality of your affirmations matters far more than quantity. When you declare, "I am worthy of abundance," while feeling the truth of that statement in your body, your subconscious begins accepting this as your new baseline reality. The transformation happens gradually but unmistakably. Your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information, begins highlighting opportunities aligned with your new programming that you previously would have missed entirely. This isn't magical thinking, but a neurological shift in perception that creates real-world outcomes. What's particularly fascinating about this journey is how the consistent practice of daily affirmations creates what psychologists call cognitive reinforcement loops. Each time you affirm your desired reality with conviction, you're strengthening neural pathways that make those beliefs more accessible, more dominant in your thinking. Over weeks and months, these pathways become your mind's default routes, cultivating mental counterparts that inevitably manifest in physical experience. The hidden truth many miss is that your subconscious mind doesn't argue with what you tell it repeatedly. It simply accepts and then works tirelessly to align your perceptions and actions with these accepted beliefs. This is why people who understand this process seem to have an almost uncanny ability to create favorable circumstances. They've mastered the art of internal alignment first. Consider the revelations from advanced neuroplasticity research showing how consistent thought patterns literally reshape brain structure. Your affirmations aren't just ephemeral thoughts, but physical forces reorganizing neural connections. This biological restructuring is the bridge between thought and manifestation that skeptics often fail to recognize. I've observed firsthand how individuals facing seemingly insurmountable obstacles completely revamp their life trajectory through this precise mechanism. Their external circumstances often remain challenging initially, but their internal relationship to those circumstances transformed radically through deliberate mental programming. This shift in perspective became the catalyst for unexpected doors opening in their external reality. What's particularly impactful about this approach is how it puts you back in the driver's seat of your life experience. Rather than feeling at the mercy of external conditions, you recognize your power to influence outcomes through the conscious direction of your subconscious mind. This represents a fundamental mindset revolution that transcends simple positive thinking techniques. The journey of reprogramming requires patience, however. Many abandon the practice before neural restructuring has fully taken hold. Understanding that you're engaging in deep identity-level work rather than quick fix. Motivation can help maintain the consistency needed for genuine transformation. If what I've shared resonates with your experiences or intuition about how reality works, write "My mind creates my reality" in the comments below. Now, I want to explore exactly how this subconscious programming manifests through your physical senses. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because understanding prayer as a reiterative act reveals something profound about how our minds actually process intention. When we repeatedly engage in prayer or affirmation, we're not just sending wishes into the universe. We're literally carving neural pathways in our brain that make certain thoughts more accessible and automatic. This mental sharpening is a transformative process that few people truly appreciate. Think about how an athlete trains the same movement thousands of times until it becomes second nature. Your thinking patterns work the same way. The beliefs you reinforce through consistent prayer develop a certain momentum in your consciousness, creating a lens through which you automatically interpret your experiences. What makes this insight so powerful is understanding that clarity, emotion, and persistence aren't just helpful additions to manifestation, they're the actual mechanisms that make it work. When you maintain crystal clarity about what you desire, you're programming your reticular activating system, the part of your brain that filters information, to notice opportunities aligned with your goals that you might otherwise miss completely. The emotional component is where many people experience a revelation in their manifestation journey. Your subconscious mind doesn't respond to your logical arguments or even your conscious intentions. It responds primarily to the emotions you consistently experience. This is why merely thinking about what you want rarely produces results, while feeling as though you already have it creates a completely different outcome. This hidden truth explains why some people can recite affirmations for years with little change, while others see rapid transformations. Your subconscious accepts or rejects programming based on the emotional charge behind it. When you make a statement you don't believe, your subconscious detects the incongruence and essentially ignores the input. The reprogramming process requires persistence precisely because we're working against established neural pathways. Your current life circumstances simply reflect the subconscious programming you've accumulated up to this point. Changing those circumstances means deliberately installing new programming through consistent emotional reinforcement. What's fascinating about this perspective is that it bridges ancient spiritual wisdom with contemporary neuroscience. The ritualistic prayers found in virtually every spiritual tradition weren't just religious ceremonies. They were sophisticated psychological techniques designed to align consciousness with specific outcomes. Behind the scenes of effective manifestation is this dance between conscious intention and subconscious acceptance. The emotions you cultivate become the background radiation of your mental environment, influencing everything from the opportunities you notice to how people respond to you. This emotional backdrop is more significant than most people realize. It's essentially broadcasting your deepest beliefs to everyone and everything around you. The impact of this understanding goes far beyond merely getting things you want. It fundamentally shifts how you perceive your relationship with reality. You move from seeing yourself as someone things happen to, toward recognizing yourself as someone who participates in creating what happens. This perspective shift alone can transform your experience of life. If you're resonating with these ideas as I describe them, write "I'm the programmer of my reality" in the comments below. Now, as we explore this further, we need to examine exactly how these subconscious patterns get established in the first place and what that means for changing them effectively. The path we travel when approaching prayer is often filled with unexpected revelations. Beyond just reciting words, there's a profound journey of transformation that unfolds when we align our prayers with wisdom rather than desperation. Think about this. How many times have you approached prayer as a quick fix rather than a disciplined Practice that requires both intention and attention. What's fascinating about this wisdom-based approach is how it integrates our material circumstances, emotional landscapes, and intentional focus into a cohesive framework. Many of us fragment these aspects of our lives, praying for financial abundance while harboring feelings of lack, or seeking relationship healing while maintaining patterns of disconnect. This misalignment creates what spiritual teachers often call prayer interference, where our conscious requests collide with our subconscious resistance. The hidden truth here is that prayer operates within a structured reality. Just as architectural principles govern how buildings stand, spiritual principles govern how our prayers manifest. I've observed that when people begin to understand these structures, their relationship with prayer undergoes a remarkable shift, moving from frustration to fluidity, from disappointment to discovery. Strategic prayer isn't about manipulation, it's about harmonization. Consider how a symphony conductor doesn't create the music, but rather organizes the existing talents and instruments into a coherent expression. Similarly, when we pray strategically according to developmental principles, we're not forcing reality, but orchestrating our alignment with it. This brings order to what might otherwise feel like chaos or coincidence. What deeply impacts our prayer effectiveness is often invisible to us. Our underlying beliefs about worthiness, possibility, and divine responsiveness. These form the foundation upon which our prayer life is built. A shaky foundation leads to inconsistent results, while a solid one supports sustainable spiritual growth. The architecture of your prayer life reveals much about your inner landscape. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how we can practically apply these principles. The implementation phase is where many spiritual seekers encounter their greatest challenges. It's one thing to understand conceptually how prayer works, it's another to integrate these insights into daily practice. What's remarkable is how small adjustments in approach can yield profoundly different outcomes. Developing prayer structures isn't merely about formality, it's about creating containers that can hold and direct our spiritual energy. Like a riverbed guides water to the ocean, these structures guide our intentions toward manifestation. Those who master this aspect of spiritual practice often report experiencing a sense of inevitability to their manifestations, not because they've manipulated reality, but because they've learned to flow with its underlying currents. The decision to approach prayer with diligence rather than desperation marks a significant turning point in many people's spiritual journeys. This shift requires patience and persistence, qualities that run counter to our culture of immediate gratification. Yet those who make this transition discover that consistent, aligned prayer becomes less about getting things and more about becoming, evolving into someone whose inner and outer worlds naturally come into harmony. What's particularly fascinating is how this process reveals our blind spots, areas where our conscious desires conflict with unconscious beliefs or attachments. These revelations, while sometimes uncomfortable, offer invaluable opportunities for integration and healing. They show us where we need to direct our attention before our prayers can fully manifest. If you've been experiencing this spiritual journey of discovery in your own prayer life, write in the comments, "I'm uncovering my prayer patterns." I'd love to know how this resonates with your experience. The journey toward vibrational alignment requires more than just mechanically reciting affirmations. When we transform daily affirmations into lived experiences, something profound happens at the energetic level. We create a bridge between our conscious objectives and divine will. This is where true governance emerges, not as control, but as a harmonious dance between our intentions and universal intelligence. Think of your thoughts as instruments in an orchestra. When each thought resonates at the frequency of truth, the entire symphony of your being plays in perfect harmony. This alignment isn't about forcing outcomes, but about allowing your authentic nature to emerge without resistance. The hidden truth many miss is that manifestation isn't something we do. It's something we become when our vibrational signature matches our desires. What fascinates me about this process is how unity between thought and emotional conviction creates such powerful results. You can recite the most beautiful affirmation, but without emotional resonance, it remains just words floating in the ether. The magic happens in the coherence, when your thoughts and emotional state vibrate at the same frequency. This coherence is what amplifies your signal to the universe. I've witnessed remarkable transformations in people who grasp this principle. One woman I worked with struggled for years with abundance blocks despite knowing all the right affirmations. The breakthrough came when she stopped trying to convince herself of abundance and instead cultivated genuine feelings of gratitude for what she already had. Within months, unexpected opportunities began flowing into her life, not because she mastered some manifestation technique, but because she had shifted her entire vibrational foundation. This journey toward alignment reveals something crucial about our relationship with reality. We're not separate entities trying to manipulate an external world. We're interconnected expressions of consciousness influencing and being influenced by the whole. When we understand this, manifestation becomes less about getting what we want and more about revealing who we truly are. The subtlety most people miss is in the emotional component. Your emotions aren't just reactions to life, they're the creative force that shapes your reality. When you generate authentic feelings that match your affirmations, you create a resonance field that attracts similar energies. This isn't mystical thinking, but a reflection of how energy operates in systems, like attracts like, and coherence builds momentum. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this alignment process fundamentally rewires our perception. When we consistently hold thoughts that vibrate at higher frequencies, love, gratitude, joy, abundance, we literally change the neural pathways in our brain. This neuroplasticity creates new default settings, making it easier to maintain these vibrations even during challenging times. Think about the last time you felt completely aligned in body, mind, and spirit. Perhaps you were in nature, engaged in creative work, or connecting deeply with someone you love. That state of flow and presence wasn't accidental. It was the natural result of vibrational coherence when all parts of you were singing the same note. The revelation that changed my approach to this work came when I stopped treating manifestation as a series of techniques and started seeing it as a reflection of my relationship with myself and the universe. When your thoughts carry the emotional weight of conviction and the lightness of trust simultaneously, you create a powerful attractor field around you. If this perspective resonates with your own experiences, type alignment activated in the comments. I'd love to know how these principles have shown up in your journey. Throughout history, those who've mastered the art of spiritual manifestation understood something profound about prayer. It's not passive wishful thinking, but an active governance of reality's fabric. True prayer involves managing realms with your consciousness fully engaged and present. When you sustain thoughts with unwavering attention, you're literally dictating the architecture of your experience. This isn't abstract philosophy, it's practical spiritual mechanics. The transformation journey requires establishing consistent active engagement with your inner world. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how different your life feels when you maintain spiritual awareness versus when you operate on autopilot? That congruity between your inner state and outer experience isn't coincidental. It's causal. Every sustained thought pattern is sending ripples through the field of possibilities that surrounds you. What's fascinating is how this principle transcends religious boundaries. Whether you call it prayer, meditation, or focused intention, the underlying process remains consistent. Your mind is the conduit through which invisible becomes visible. But here's the revelation that changed everything for me. Most people pray intermittently, like turning a faucet on and off, then wonder why their manifestations arrive with the same inconsistency. Daily life becomes the ultimate practice ground for this spiritual training. Every interaction, every challenge, every mundane moment offers an opportunity to govern reality through your conscious awareness. I've discovered that persistently affirming truth, not as wishful thinking, but as recognition of what already exists in potential form, crafts a spiritually centered existence where synchronicities become commonplace. This governance isn't about controlling external circumstances through force of will. Rather, it's about aligning your consciousness with the deeper currents of creation. When you truly understand this principle, you'll notice a profound shift in how you approach challenges. Instead of resisting what appears as reality, you'll recognize it as feedback from previous thought patterns and adjust your inner stance accordingly. The hidden truth here is that most spiritual seekers miss the connection between consistency and manifestation. They practice intensely during dedicated sessions, but abandon spiritual awareness during normal activities. Yet it's precisely this integration that accelerates transformation. When you maintain spiritual consciousness while cooking, working, or conversing, you're establishing a new baseline for your entire being. What's been most impactful in my journey is recognizing that this practice isn't about escaping reality, but engaging with it more fully. By remaining spiritually centered during life's tumults, you develop a resilience that goes beyond mere endurance. You discover the capacity to transmute challenges into opportunities for deeper awakening. The most profound revelations often come not during formal meditation, but in those moments when you maintain spiritual awareness amid life's chaos. That's when you witness firsthand how your consistent inner stance shapes external circumstances. It's like watching reality respond to the silent commands of your consciousness, not immediately, but with the perfect timing that universal intelligence provides. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this persistent spiritual awareness creates a feedback loop of accelerating transformation. As you become more consistent in maintaining spiritual consciousness, you'll notice reality responds with increasing sensitivity to your inner state. If what I've shared resonates with your own experiences, write in the comments. I am the governor of my reality. I'd love to know who's actively practicing these principles in their daily life. If this exploration of spiritual manifestation has illuminated something within you, I'd love to continue the conversation. This practice of consistent spiritual governance isn't just theoretical, it's a living experience that transforms how we navigate our existence. Consider subscribing to this channel if you're committed to this deeper spiritual journey. Each video builds upon these principles, offering practical ways to maintain that conscious awareness throughout your daily life. If you've made it all the way through and these ideas truly speak to you, leave a comment saying, "I am the governor of my reality." I'm genuinely curious about who's actively implementing these principles in their lives. And if this resonated with you, that simple becomes a meaningful acknowledgement of our shared understanding of these spiritual mechanics. There's a video right here that expands on how this consistent spiritual awareness creates tangible shifts in your external world. Click and continue this exploration with me there. I think you'll find it illuminates the next steps in your practice.